The Honorable Thibedi.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Deputy President, and Honorable Speaker, concisely outlining the ANC foreign policy, the former president of the ANC, Comrade Oliver Reginald Tambo, said in 1977, and I quote, "We seek to live in peace with our neighbors and the peoples of the world in conditions of equality, mutual respect, and equal advantage," close quote. Aptly, Comrade O.R. lucid words represent what the ANC and its government seeks to realize. The ANC is neither craving for the excess nor will it content itself with the deficient. It seeks the mean between the excess and the deficient. As the sage of old Aristotle would have said, indeed the ANC only seeks social justice, fair treatment, and protection of human dignity for all. The ANC has thus committed itself to building a better Africa in a better world, and will continue to strive for a new world order in which the brotherhood of man prevails and all peoples of the world reap equal benefit of the resources our planet has to offer. However, Honorable Deputy Speaker, let me without ado indicate that I am not oblivious to the diverse permutations of our society and the inherent contradictions that attend such diversity. Ours has to be a unity in diversity. In other words, our diversity should serve as glue that seals us together rather than a wedge that drives us apart. I venture to contend that our diverse views, opinions, and preferences may only germinate and bloom when not in conflict with the Constitution. That this democratic dispensation is a product of a negotiated settlement cannot be gainsaid. Be that as it may, we all should do well to remember that the negotiated settlement bests the current Constitution. Therefore, those who continue to yearn for a federal South Africa should restrain their predilections, idiosyncrasies, and desires and refrain from creating quasi-federal outposts, especially where international cooperation is concerned. Section 40, subsection 1 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa provides that government is constituted as national, provincial, and local spheres of government, which are distinctive, interdependent, and interrelated. Section 41, subsection 1A obligates all spheres of government and organs of state cooperatively to preserve the peace, national unity, and indivisibility of the Republic. Parliament has a duty to ensure that our foreign policy determines all relations and agreements between a province or a municipality and its foreign counterparts. South Africa had to speak one language in all international relations engagements, despite inadvertent diversity in political leadership and at other spheres of government. The point I want to underscore is that it is unconstitutional conduct for everyone to engage in international operations that militates against South Africa's foreign policy and undermines the collective national interest of the people of South Africa. Parliament should not only speak against such unconstitutional acts, but should also ensure that corrective justice is meted out against perpetrators of such wrongs. In broad terms, Honorable Deputy Speaker, ours is to protect the people of South Africa against fear and want. Pursuant to this imperative, South Africa's national interest can be summarized in the goal of a better Africa and a better world. Let me assert that the adjective better is not a mere superlative measured in terms of progress, but has to denote resilience, unity, integrity, and other such values. However, the unfortunate part has been that this balance between the ideal and the real does not find expression in the discourse due to skewed balance of power in the public domain. The South African context continues to be marked by the unity and struggle between generally neoliberal and conservative inclinations of a small section of society and broadly progressive impulses born of long years of our struggle for liberation. The neoliberal conservative foreign policy proponents criticize South African foreign policy for failing to ensure return on investments. They claim that the country has nothing to show for huge contributions in time, energy, and funds to peacemaking, peacekeeping, post-conflict reconstruction, and democracy promotion in Africa. In their view, South Africa ought to give greater attention to economic diplomacy or economic interest. The point made by these forces is that the domestic justification of foreign policy is in us being able to show in concrete trade and investment figures how the country has benefited from our African agenda. I want to assert without fear of contradiction that the ANC will not blindly entrap this country in dangers that attend enmeshing diplomatic engagement with commerce. The truth of the matter is that there is no evidence that when big companies amass super profit from doing trades in Africa, they share such with the broader public. We at all times should be conscious of the fact that South Africa's poverty is not conjectural, but structural, and more so our identity has been formed in a struggle for justice and grade. Let me now come to parliamentary forums and how our parliament can ensure cooperative governance through its participation in such fora. Allow me, Deputy Speaker, to address myself to a common concern about value for money supposedly not realized in relation to participation in parliamentary forums. I am convinced that those who argue that money used in participation in parliamentary forums could have been put better use in other programs of parliament base their positions on lack of knowledge. I do not seek to attempt to refute their arguments or to disabuse such of their conviction. Mine is to make a recommendation to Parliament to create space and time for Parliament to receive an engaged report from participants of this forum. In relation to the SADC Parliamentary Forum, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the ANC has committed itself to multilaterally promoting the process of transformation of the SADC-PF into a SADC parliament. As part of the SADC-PF, our parliament should strive for the realization of the vision of the SADC-PF to be a regional parliament that reflects and respects the collective voice and aspiration of national parliaments and SADC citizens. Parliament has to contribute to building and sustaining peaceful, stable democracies and good governance practices in the SADC region. In this regard, Parliament should support the enhancement of constitutional and democratic practices in institutions that are responsible for and engage in public affairs and governance in SADC. There should also be vigorous promotion of citizens-oriented effective regional integration. Parliament should thus be guided by the fact that peace, stability, and good governance are sine qua non to socio-economic development. The region can only be developed and as a corollary be meaningful economically integrated if and when it is peaceful and stable. The truth deserves re-emphasis that South Africa cannot sustainably be an island of opulence surrounded by a sea of poverty. It is tried to mention that it is Parliament's interest to collectively undertake to deepen socio-economic development in the region. Our current challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality can be addressed through an integrated and strengthened regional economic community. The Pan-African Parliament, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the vision and purpose of the Pan-African Parliament can be traced directly to the Pan-African ideals of cooperation and unity among African states, leading ultimately to the establishment of an African Economic Community. These ideals inspired the signing of the treaty establishing the African Economic Community, the Abuja Treaty on the 3rd of June 1991, and the adoption of the CETA Declaration in 1999. The CETA Declaration called for the establishment of the institution provided for in the Abuja Treaty, and the PAP was envisioned as a platform from which the African peoples could be represented in the decision-making process affecting the continent. According to Article 3 of the Pan-African Parliament Protocol, the key objectives of the PAP are, among others, to promote human rights, democracy, peace, and security, to facilitate cooperation and development on the continent, to strengthen continental solidarity and build a common destiny among Africa's people, to encourage good governance, transparency, accountability, and member states. I have already drawn the reinforcing relations between peace and stability and development. I will not belabor that point. However, I should mention that one of the threats to peace and stability, and by extension development in the continent, is the United States' AFRICOM presence in Africa under the guise of war and terror, while actually militarizing the continent. The ANC recognizes that the AFRICOM is more than just the building of American bases on the African continent, but it includes most subtle programs involving the US and NATO military in military training of African militaries, the funding of NGOs for anti-African agendas, and increasingly the introduction of drones under the guise of technological assistance in conflict areas. The ANC respects the territorial integrity and sovereignty of fellow African countries and call on the US and military organizations like NATO to do the same. In terms of interparliamentary union, Honorable Deputy Speaker, one of the areas of activity of the IPU is sustainable development. Sustainable development, according to IPU, transcends merely linking the environment considerations to economic growth. Sustainable development encompasses such other vital issues as human development, social and economic justice, and the advancement of democracy. Economic development includes, among other elements, the need to revise the current global financial and economic model, globalization of the economy, and liberalization of trade. Through the IPU, Parliament should promote sustainable development by, amongst others, encouraging other countries to reduce their carbon gas emissions. Our Parliament actively participated in COP17 processes. In the same vein and vigor, Parliament should promote the implementation of COP17 decisions. Among the decisions I'm referring to is the agreement by government to the full implementation of the package to support developing nations agreed to in 2010 in Cancun, Mexico. The ANC endeavors to realize global economic justice as the IPU does. Through the IPU and multilaterally through the IPSA and the BRICS Parliamentary Forum, Parliament should endeavor to realize a more inclusive global economic model. The ANC's call for reform of the IMF and World Bank to reflect equity and fairness continues. Honorable Deputy Speaker, let me remind this House that BRICS is a continuation of the tradition that was firmly established 58 years ago in April 1955, when countries of Asia and Africa met at the historic Bandung Conference to galvanize their collective muscle in the context of the Cold War and assert themselves in the international system. The Bandung Conference, which led to the formation of the Non-Aligned Movement, was a historic watershed in the international relations of developing countries. At the BRICS Summit held in Sanya, China in 2011 of April, the 5 leaders declared that, and I quote, "It is the overarching objective and strong shared desire for peace, security, development, and cooperation that brought BRICS countries with a total population of nearly 3 billion from different continents. BRICS aims at contributing significantly to the development of humanity and establishing a more equitable and fair world, close quote. Currently, in the midst of the global economic crisis, many countries in the world are looking up to BRICS member states for a way out. Through the BRICS Parliamentary Forum, Parliament should work multilaterally to strive to enhance inclusive economic growth that will lead to an increase in the creation of decent, sustainable jobs, advance the fight against poverty, and accelerate the economic transformation in the member countries. Parliament should, in the same vein, work to realize a more equitable global political and economic system. In conclusion, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the ANC neither craves the excess nor countenance the deficiency. We seek only justice, equality, and fairness in international cooperation. Again, we make a strong call for a synchronized international cooperation, representative of a unitary structure of our beloved country. Let there be peace and stability in Mother Africa. Let her socioeconomic muscle grow from strength to strength among the family of nations. Let the brotherhood of men prevail in all four corners of the globe. But before I sit down, Honorable Deputy Speaker, I heard the Chief Whip of the DA saying that on behalf of the opposition parties, they are very frustrated. I just want to give them a friendly advice. There is no frustration in the African National Congress. They will be most welcome if you can lead the best of the opposition to come to the other side of the table. We can be able to build a united, democratic, and non-racial society. I thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Thibedi.